Hi, my name is Nana.misa. I'm a London-based cinematographer, and in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about 5 things that I would do completely different if I was starting my cinematography career over again in 2024. So the first thing I want to talk about is technique versus gear. When I first started out, I felt pressured to get all the best gear. I had a Sony a6000, and that was a camera that only shot 1080p. And I remember getting that camera and feeling I needed to upgrade straight away because I felt it wasn't shooting 4K, therefore my work wouldn't be of great quality. And that's what I went and did. I went and got a Sony a6300 after having the camera maybe for, I'd say about 2 weeks, not that long. But once I got the a6300, it still didn't improve my work. If I look back at my earlier work, there was still a lot of things that I needed to learn. So things around composition, framing, color grading, and I felt that my work would vastly improve if I got the Sony a6300. Now, as you can see, some of my earlier work was okay, but there's still a lot of mistakes and things that I would change about that work. And as time went on, that's when my work improved. And especially with the Sony a6300, I learned that camera a lot over time. I learned how the sensor worked. I learned how to get the best out of it and how to get a clear and solid image by knowing how to light scenes and how to frame scenes. And as you can see in examples, the work improved drastically. Once I started seeing improvement, I realized, you know what, I don't always have to necessarily go for the more expensive gear because the Sony a6300 was serving me well. If we take the light that I use for most of my client work during that time, it's the light that I'm currently using now to film this video, and it's a 60 watt light by Neewer. It wasn't that expensive. It was maybe, I would say like 120 pounds. I remember saying, no, I need to get the aperture 120D. And something said, no, stick with this light until you get a little bit further along. I've only recently, it was only last year that I got a new light, and I've got the Amaran 200DS, which I use for a lot of my client work. But I was mainly using this 60 watt light that I'm using to film this video right now. And that light I still use in some scenarios. You often hear the question, does gear matter? And in my personal opinion, I do believe gear matters, but I think what's more important than the gear is technique. But I think there needs to be context added to that. Its gear will help you execute your story or your vision in a better way. But if you haven't got the technique, the skill and the experience, having the top quality gear is not going to be useful if you don't know how to use that gear. And I think in the beginning, it's all about getting the best out of what you have and really understanding the gear that you have. So the next thing I want to talk about is lighting. Lighting is something that I'm still learning and pushing myself to learn more about. I think knowing how to light makes a massive difference to your final image and also helps tell the story as well, depending on what you're filming. You don't necessarily need the most powerful or expensive lights. You just need to understand how to light. I think you can do a lot with some of the lower budget lights that are on the market at the moment. As I said, this light that I'm filming this YouTube video with is probably about £100 to $100, brand new, or even less on eBay. So I think it's about understanding how to light a scene and understanding things like motivated light, understanding how to diffuse light, understanding how to bounce light. All these things make a major part of how to make your image look better. Also, another thing to add is also sometimes when you may need to just rely on natural light. So there's been a lot of scenarios where I've been doing a lot of run and gun work, and there's some scenarios where you may have a space where there's not enough room to set up a light stand and a big soft box. So you sometimes may have to rely on the natural light that is in the room, or rely on things such as practical lights to help add depth to the scene. So this is something I would highly recommend as well. Definitely practice working with natural light. So next, I want to talk about practicing cinematography. I would rarely film unless I was filming something for paid work or a personal project. I would rarely ever just practice different filming techniques or filming scenarios until I was on location. And that was a problem because what would often happen is I would encounter problems that maybe I wasn't prepared for, or wasn't anticipating. What I do more now is I practice different things. I don't necessarily put those videos out. I don't use them for anything, but it gives me an understanding of how I can use my equipment in different scenarios. So I think it's key that you practice. A good way to do this is go on something like Frame Set or Shot Deck and pull different scenes and try and replicate those scenes in order to better help you understand how these scenes are crafted, both with composition, camera settings, and lighting, because this will help you out a lot when you do get on location. You have that experience and that knowledge of, okay, this is the best way to get this particular type of image. This is something I try and do a lot more often, because in the past it wasn't something I was doing, and I feel it improves you a lot as a cinematographer and filmmaker. So the next thing I want to talk about is pre-production. This was something that I never used to do. Like, I would turn up on set, I'll kind of have a rough idea of what I wanted to film, because I come from a background of being self-taught, doing run and gun work. I often didn't really have a structure to the way I would plan filming. As I started getting more and more paid work, I realized this was becoming problematic, because what would happen in certain scenarios, I might be fortunate to have picked up some work which was worth quite a bit of money, and you don't want to be there in front of a client not knowing exactly what you want to do. It doesn't really instill confidence. You want to let them know that off the bat, this is what we're going to do, this is what the shoot is going to involve, and this is how we're going to film it. And another big thing about that, it will save you so much in terms of not having to fix things later. And it will also ensure that you're producing and delivering something that the client wants. With pre-production, it will allow you to also interact with the client and let them know what it is you're going to film, so that there's no confusion. So for the final piece of advice, I would say it's to get better audio. There's been so many videos that I did for clients where, you know, the framing and the composition wasn't as good as I am today. The color grading wasn't great. But if you add on top of that, there's bad audio, that just makes it even worse. And one thing I've been working on and trying to improve on is to make sure that there's solid audio in all my videos. And this is something that I'm trying to practice and work on, and ensure that every time I go on set or go on client work, when I'm filming something, the audio is set up in a way that I know I'm going to get consistent results each and every time. Because what often happens is, if you don't have a consistent audio setup, it can result in you sometimes having to get the client to say something again, re-record things again. It can result in you having to do so much work in post. It's easier to watch a bad video with good audio than it is to watch a slightly decent video with bad audio. And this is something which I've been learning, and this is something I'm working on and improving and practicing, and it's understanding audio. And another thing I'm working on is how I process audio in post as well, to get the most rich sound out of the footage that I've recorded, because audio plays such a big part in telling your story or conveying information in a video. So I think it's essential that you get your audio spot on. Even though I said this video would consist of 5, I think there's one more bonus tip I think people should take on board, and I think I would have done again, is I think you should rent gear. Renting gear will allow you to see what it's like to film with more expensive gear, understand how it is to operate maybe more complex cameras, or cameras that may be true cinema cameras that don't have maybe some of the creature comforts that you get in your mirrorless setups. It will also help you rent other pieces of gear that you may be looking to upgrade to, because sometimes you may find that the piece of gear that you want to upgrade to does not necessarily suit your workflow, and it's understanding whether that piece of gear is going to fit your workflow. Nowadays, you have so many peer-to-peer rental services. I'm based in the UK, and I use an app called Fat Llama, which allows me to rent gear off other people. It allows you to also rent out your gear. If you don't have any of those within your local area, try and look for rental houses within your area, because if you rent out gear, you can find out if this gear suits your filming style and your workflow. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Those were my 5 tips, including one bonus tip on things I would do differently if I was starting my cinematography career over again in 2024. I want to use this YouTube channel to make sure I'm documenting my journey and also helping me practice and try out new things that I can later use within my client work, because I think it's essential that you keep filming and keep practicing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. Thank you for watching.